chasing the 1%. That's how Brian Hartline once described Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson back in 2021. And I was wondering going into this week as we were talking to wide receivers, would Brian Hartline maybe say the same thing about Jeremiah Smith? And he did on Monday when we talked to him, chasing that 1%. Because when you're that good, you don't always notice the incremental improvements that are there, especially when, listen, you're the best player in college football. So I'm Steven, that's Stefan, that's Andrew. Stefan, what do you want to see from Jeremiah Smith in 2025 that lets you know he is a better football player than the 2024 version of him?
See how many defensive backs teams throw at him? I think for Jeremiah, the biggest thing is probably just consistency at this point. That's kind of what you're chasing, because you know what your ceiling can be. And it's odd talking about it because he was very consistent last year. Like, you could always count on him to have 50-plus, 70-plus receiving yards. There were rare exceptions where he didn't reach that number. But can he kind of take that next step? Can that, okay, you know you're going to get at least 70. Can you get it? You know, you're going to get at least 90 from Jeremiah. Like, we know he's going to get touchdowns. Is there another step to his game? Because I think all three of us are in agreement that this is a guy who could very well be a non-quarterback that goes to the Heisman Trophy ceremony and could win the Heisman Trophy. A big reason he wasn't in that conversation at all last year, even though by like week 4 we were all in agreement that he's the best receiver in the country, the numbers weren't popping off the charts, right? Like, he didn't have numbers like some of the receivers we saw, like Arizona, McMillan at Arizona. He had crazy numbers early in the year. Like, he didn't have anything like that going on early in the season to kind of build that Heisman campaign. Can those numbers start to go up a little bit consistently more to where you're talking Heisman campaign and he's got the stats to do that? I think it can happen. I mean, we saw him catch a touchdown in all but like 2 games last year. I don't remember exactly what the number was, but it's crazy to say because he was so consistent. But can that consistent, that baseline, get even a step higher this year, where instead of saying, oh, you know you're going to get 70 yards from him, oh, you know you're going to get 90 to 100 yards from him?
We talked when we did the best seasons versions of people. One of the reasons we put Marvin over JJ's year was at that point in the year when we did it, he hadn't necessarily taken over a game. Like, how many games did you go, oh, this was the JJ game?
It maybe wasn't even until the playoff that, like, right, Tennessee or Oregon was where we were like, boom, like, that's the JJ game. Because we were saying, like, okay, is it going to happen against Penn State? Is it going to happen against, like, what's the game that he just takes over? And it never really happened. As great as he was, there was never that game where you were just like, they have zero game plan against him.
And we started to see that. And some of that's because Ohio State leaned into its passing game a little bit more. But that's a good point. What do you want to see? What's the tangible thing you want to see from JJ in 2025 that lets you know he's starting to reach that next 1%?
I want to see him handle being Jeremiah Smith. And what I mean by that is, how do you handle everybody in the country knowing who you are and throwing everything at you? Because, you know, there are certain things, like we talked about this after the Oregon game, and, like, you know, I was kind of making the case, like, look, Jeremiah, like in the Oregon game in Eugene, I was like, look, that was an offensive pass interference, but the little things like that. Jeremiah Smith is bigger, faster, stronger than everybody else on the field. And if you push somebody and your arms extend and the other guy goes flying backwards 5 yards, yeah, you're bigger, faster, stronger than him, but the penalty's coming out every time. How does Jeremiah Smith learn how to get away with stuff like that? How does he learn not to fully extend? How does he handle his own strength? How does he handle kind of the intimate moments, the very little things like that? And additionally, there's going to be games, I bet you, this year that are just going to be comical, where a team has a corner on him and you have a safety over the top, and then you have somebody else like a linebacker buzzing out and shading that side of the field, right? Like, there are going to be some comical moments. Now, that's going to open things up, but how does Jeremiah handle, hey man, you're getting double teamed every single play and they're just basically saying anybody but you? Okay, that didn't happen all of last year a lot. Like, we talked about, remember the Tennessee game? Will Howard gave that look where he was like, I got to the line of scrimmage, looked to my left, saw Jeremiah was in man-on-man coverage, they were pressing him, looked back, and I was like, are they really doing this right now? Like, even in the playoff, teams were not double-teaming him. Now everybody's going to double-team him. How do you handle that? Just how do you handle that on the stat sheet? How do you handle that mentally? Because it's got to be hard for a guy like that who has just always been bigger, faster, stronger, and always had those stats. What happens if there's a 2-game stretch where he has 6 catches for 50, 60, 70 yards? and no touchdowns because defenses are just comically overplaying him. And the read is just, hey, Carnell Tate's wide open because he's one-on-one, and Brandon Innes is wide open. How do you handle that? It's about handling the superstardom of being Jeremiah Smith, because I think off the field that impacts on the field, and then the on-field aspects I think are pretty clear as well.
Let me add something as well. There is a true football aspect. Like, he is not a perfect football player yet, because we heard, Brian Hartline talk the other day. He wants his route tree to expand. He wants him to be more of an option, moving in the slot and doing things like that. So there are, like, football tangible things that, yes, Jeremiah is a great receiver and physically gifted and all that comes with that. But there are, like, X's and O's things that he can improve on as well. He's not, he is not a Hall of Fame Jerry Rice yet. He's going to probably get there, but he's not there yet. And there's things that he's going to, X's and O's to expand on as well.
When Brian Hartline said it, or Ryan, I can't remember which one talked about him playing in the slot a little bit more, but I thought about Marvin Harrison Jr. in 2023 because they did that with him. Yeah. They started working him in the slot in that spring because it was a next step for him, and then they did it in the fall, and he ended up in New York. So, but also, Brian Hartline mentioned IQ. I asked JJ today, like, hey, where are you actually working on yourself at? It's understanding the game. What that says to me is this dude had 76 catches for 1,300 plus yards and 15 touchdowns and has no idea how he did it. The first time we ever talked with Brian Hartline about JJ was last spring, and he said, I love how he works. I love that there are times where he'll do something, and I'll go, do you know what you just did? He's like, I don't know, coach. I just go out there and play football. Okay, so what happens when he knows what he's doing? That's what I'm talking about, the X's and O's. He is still learning how to play football. To your point, he is still learning how to be Jeremiah Smith. He is still learning because he's 19 years old, and he had 76 catches for 1,300 plus yards and 15 touchdowns. And he's 19 years old. So what is understanding the game? When he unlocks that part of it, when they put him in the slot, and now there's a linebacker or a safety on him, when he understands everything there is to understand about playing college football, because that lesson's not going to stop when he gets to the NFL, but our former colleague Nathan Baer used to use this analogy a lot. Who's faster? Two guys who are running a 4.4, right? But one guy's got perfect form and the other guy's form is really sloppy and ugly. Okay, so what happens if you give that guy who's got sloppy form perfect form? You probably shave like 0.2 seconds off of that 40, right? And that's what I'm thinking about with JJ. As he understands it more, as he spends more time around Brian Hartline and Ryan Day, especially since Brian Hartline's the offensive coordinator now, what does he understand now that he didn't understand a year ago? And where is he at by the time Texas rolls around, and understanding the X's and O's and understanding how to go about approaching the game of football? Because that unlocks a player that I'm not sure anybody knows what to do with, whether you throw everybody at him or not. We'll continue to discuss this on Buckeye Talk, so go listen to that wherever you find podcasts. And get the text 614-350-3315. 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Ohio State spring game on Saturday. JJ's probably not going to do much in that game, to be honest with you.
He could have a one-handed catch. I'm
sure.
Not trying to get out.
No, sure. He'll have a one-handed catch, and then Ryan will say, okay, take those pads off.
And I know exactly what's going to happen. We saw the quickest whistle in Thud history when we were in here last Saturday. Jeremiah is going to catch a pass over the middle, and with the second somebody gets with it, it's going to be like COVID. It's going to be like he had COVID in 2020. Yeah. The second somebody gets within 6 feet of him and social distancing no longer a thing, away from Jeremiah.
They're going to let him do something cool for the fans, and they're going to go, all right, JJ. Yeah. Good day. See you in June. See you guys on Saturday. Steven, Stefan, Andrew. Bye.